going to be using a lot in this class, a lot in English 2, and a lot when you get to other writing classes are slang and jargon. So we need to talk about those things now, so it makes more sense as you keep going. And I'm going to throw in a third word for you too. So slang, jargon, and take a shot and pronounce that one. Put me on pause. Everybody take a shot at it. So we need to talk about slang, jargon, and colloquialisms is how you pronounce that. So hopefully you're laughing at this point because everybody usually butchers this word. So it's colloquialisms is how to say that one. And it's just a fancy word for something else. So we're going to start by defining them. You're not allowed to use any of these things in your professional writing at all. There's a small exception under this column, but you're never allowed to use any of these things. So if you'd like to write not allowed under every single column, please feel free. Just not under the jargon. This one will be sometimes allowed. So, sorry, we already wrote that. So let's go through why. Anybody know what slang is? This is usually that time where you guys are throwing out a bunch of different answers, or you're making that weird face because you know what it is, but you kind of can't define it necessarily. So I'm going to define it for you. If you're still talking, put me on pause because I'd rather you do that. We're going to define slang as conversational language or conversational words. So every single word, okay, I shouldn't say every single, 95% of words, a vast majority of words have two different definitions. One is called a connotation and one is called a denotation. A denotation of the word is the dictionary definition of the word. A connotation is how society defines the word. So the connotation and slang are essentially the same things. So I'm going to use this word because it's a good example. In no way do I mean it to offend anybody, so please don't take it as such because that's not my intention. But the word gay has a dictionary definition. So its denotation means to be happy, jovial. It means to be in a good mood. Society has unfortunately taken that word and turned it into sometimes not nice things. People use that term when they're saying something is stupid. It's so gay. The problem with slang is exactly what I just prefaced that word with, is that people can get offended by slang very, very quickly. The reason that it can be offensive is because it's ambiguous. And that's a word that means something different to different people. So, if I use that word, and again, I in no way mean to offend anybody, but if somebody in the room was a homosexual, good for you. Yay. I don't care who you go home to. More power to you. But if I stood up here and said, oh, this lesson is so gay, I'm so sorry, I could have just offended whoever that affected. But maybe in a different circle of friends, it wouldn't offend somebody. So ambiguous terms mean different things to different people. So it can be taken the wrong way. So, if I'm talking to a guy and he looks pretty sad, he's from Scotland, and he looks pretty sad, and I'm like, "What? You all right? What's the matter?" We had to kill our kid last night. I'm sorry, you had to do what? Our kid died last night. Your kid died? Are you okay? What happened? And the guy says, well, you know what, he was really sick, and he was sick for a long time. He really wasn't that old. How old was your kid? He was only about 5. Oh my God, you lost your 5-year-old? Yeah, you know, he was sick for a really long time, and there was nothing that anyone was going to be able to do, so we put him out of his misery. I'm sorry, you did what? So at this point, I'm calling Child Protective Services, I'm calling the Popo, I am calling people for help, because this dude just killed his 5-year-old kid. So I'm trying to side dial 911, get him recorded. I'm getting a confession. I'm like a police officer. I am FBI right now, getting a confession. So he keeps talking and says it actually turned out to be a good thing. He says because after their kid passed away, they were actually able to use part of him to help the rest of the family. So I said, I asked if they donated his organs. And he said, well, sort of, but not quite. He goes, we shaved him, and we were able to use his hair to kind of keep one of our, other kids warm. And I'm looking at him funny. He goes, and then we used the organs to actually feed our other kids. And now I'm like, okay, wait, so your 5-year-old kid died and you made your other kids eat the 5-year-old kid? Is basically what I'm hearing. What's the big problem with this whole story? Aside that it's completely made up and ridiculous. The problem is the word kid. To us, kid means small child. Kid actually is a baby goat. So there's nothing wrong with what he was saying, but to me, because the slang term means something different to me, I'm turning him into the cops, and he's just farming, and it's no big deal. So slang can be a really big problem. People in different geographical regions have different slang terms for things. Hoagies, subs, grinders, pizza, could be a tray or a slice or a pie. I went to college with a girl who called soda pop, and she kept asking where pop was, and her roommate thought she meant her father. People call grandparents pop. So pop actually means to burst or to explode. So if you're using slang if the dictionary definition of the term does not apply to what you're saying. So you cannot say you're chilling out with your friends. Unless all of your friends are actually sitting in a meat locker, freezing and chilling, then you're not chilling out. You are not hanging out with your friends unless you got a body part hanging out of your clothing, and it shouldn't be. Or you are hanging out of the window with your friends, then you're hanging out with your friends. So you need to actually take the literal meaning of the word. If you mean it a different way than its literal meaning, then it's slang. So we can't use slang at all. Jargon, sometimes you can use. So jargon are specialized terms. jargon, just like in slang, is these can also be ambiguous to an extent. I'm going to write ambiguous to outside groups, and I'll explain what that means as soon as I write it. So, you all in dental hygiene are going to have a whole big list of jargon by the time you graduate. In English land, and as a teacher, I have sets of jargon. As someone who used to work in medicine, I have a set of jargon. We have jargon here. Jargon are words that people outside of that profession, outside of that society, might not understand. So what I mean is, here at Fortis, we call semesters mods. Mod is jargon, because people who don't come to school here and have never heard of the word mod don't know what it means. So when you go home and talk to your family and say, oh yeah, my new mod starts on Monday, they have no idea what you're talking about. Calling you guys a cohort is slang for us, because it stands for freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, but we don't have ranking like that. So instead of saying group 1, group 2, people are called cohorts around here. In English, we have demonstrative sentences. We have, oh my God, there's so much jargon, where if I said the technical term for something, you wouldn't know what it was because you're not an English person. Teaching has a whole big set of jargon. Every profession does. In medicine, medicine has tons and tons of jargon. Scaling, planing, trying to think of some of your words, and whoever is subbing, if it's a dental person, can be filling in a lot of those terms for me right now. Ultrasonic, I'm trying to think of it's not working, I'm trying to think of the tool that shoots the water really quickly, and I know it starts with a CL, and I can't think of what it is. And I never remember that word. But there are a lot of terms that you guys are going to know, but people outside of the dental profession aren't going to know what they mean. I am outside of the dental profession, big time. I only started to know some of these words because I hear you guys using them all of the time. So I actually had a student once who was a dental hygiene student, and I was tutoring her, and one of a paper that she wrote. And she kept writing this. C-A-R-I-E-S. Anybody know what that means? I kept marking it wrong on the student because I thought she was spelling carries the wrong way. When you carry something, like carrying some books or carrying groceries, I thought she was spelling it the wrong way. I had no idea that this word actually means cavity. Cavitron, that's the name of that machine. Sorry. I had no idea that this actually meant cavity. So I kept marking it wrong because I'm outside the profession. If another teacher walked in and we started talking about anticipatory sets, formal assessment, informal assessment, and things like that, that other teacher would know what those 3 words meant because they were a teacher. You guys don't, because you're not teachers, so you're outside of that loop of jargon. So jargon exists primarily within every single profession, depending on what you do. So the reason that you sometimes can do it, and it's only ambiguous to some people, the big thing with jargon is you have to define it. So your options for jargon are define it, clarify it, explain it, or avoid it. Sometimes people try and use big words to make themselves sound smart, and they don't really need to. It's kind of the concept behind jargon. I could stand up here until I'm blue in the face and I can throw a lot of technical English terms at you, infinitives and gerunds and demonstrative adjectives that we talked about in parts of speech, and participle phrases. I got lots of words I could throw at you. But at the end of the day, the words are going to go right over your head because you don't know them and don't want to pay attention to them. You want to know what the concept is. So I've spent time telling you what the concepts are, but not telling you what the fancy-dancy words are because you don't necessarily need to know. I just did it with slang, with connotation and denotation. Those two terms are jargon. If you never remember them, no big deal. Just remember the concept. There's a dictionary definition and a social definition. So sometimes you get your point across better without using the jargon at all and just talking about the idea or the concept. And that's a decision as an author that you make depending on what you want to say and what emphasis you're trying to have. Sometimes you need to use the word. That's okay. You just have to explain what that word means. So carries as an example. If you're writing a paper for a general audience, it would be better to use the word cavity and not use carry at all, because the normal person who's outside of the dental profession knows what a cavity is, but doesn't know what a carry is. And maybe they don't even need to know the technical term to still understand the concept. Colloquialisms are really aggravating. Colloquialisms are like an umbrella that includes sayings and cliches. This is a CL, it probably looks like a D now that I look at it. So cliches and sayings are what are involved in colloquialisms. So, the grass is always greener on the other side. Every dark cloud has a silver lining. It's always darkest before the dawn. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Every rainbow has a pot of gold. Those who live in glass houses should not throw stones. Let's run it up the flagpole and see how it flies. Then there's the one I never understood. The bird in the hand is worth two in a bush. All of those things are cliches. Things that really don't mean anything. If you break up with somebody and I tell you there are plenty of fish in the sea, you probably will want to smack me because it doesn't make you feel any better. It's not any advice. It's a platitude. It doesn't give you anything either way. There's no feelings attached to it. So cliches are pretty empty. It's always darkest before the dawn. I think I might have said that one. Like half the time you say a cliche and you're like, what does that even mean? I don't even get it. When you're really upset and you're ugly crying to the point, the snots are coming out the nostrils and in the mouth and you can't stop it and you're so upset and someone says, every cloud has a silver lining. You want to punch them in the face. And you don't even know what that necessarily means. So that's what cliches are. Sayings are things that kind of change over time. So cliches are empty, but they also survive a long time. They have a long shelf life. I have no idea who ever started the bird in the hand, two in the bush thing, but everybody knows it to an extent. It survived many, many generations. Sayings are usually time sensitive. So when Justin Timberlake's Sexy Back was really popular, I think every Facebook status was, I'm bringing sexy back. Now, nobody really says that anymore. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas is a popular saying now. Nobody was saying that 5-6 years ago until Vegas was really pushing its tourism lately. Beyonce with Bootylicious made up her own word. That was kind of a saying. I'm trying to think of other ones right now. I hope you're thinking of some. But ones that are sayings that are happening because of pop culture, because of music, because of television, things like that, that once the song is too old or once the movie's too old or something like that, the kind of next generation doesn't really get it, kind of a thing. The problem with colloquialisms, to be quite blunt and honest, is it makes you look lazy. When you use sayings and when you use cliches, all it does is show the reader that you couldn't think of anything else better to say, more creative, that you were stuck. That's what those things do. Usually people put in cliches and sayings when they can't think of anything else to say. It's when it always happens. That doesn't mean it's okay to use them. That means the reader can see right through them and knows that you don't know what to say next. That's the problem with them. So, you don't want to do this. You're better than that. None of you are lazy. None of you are lazy writers. So you're not allowed to use this stuff and look like a lazy writer. So, if you guys are in the classroom with a substitute, the substitute needs to grab a dry erase marker because you guys are going to do a little activity. This can be as big as you want it to be, but you're going to make a list of slang because when you first start writing, this is one of the hardest things to avoid because it's everywhere. It's in texting language, it's in email. I could have said slang words, I probably have, through all of these videos and not noticed it because I'm talking to you conversationally. So, you're going to start throwing out words and make a big list of slang. And I'm going to get you started with just a couple of them that I see a lot that sometimes you guys don't think to throw out there. So we already talked about kid. Teen is one that I get all the time. And that is slang because the word is not teen, the word is teenager. That's why that's slang. So, grill is another one if you're talking about. A grill is something that you cook on, or it's at the front of a car. It is not your smile. So, if you're talking about a smile and you call it a grill, then it's slang. For the same reason, teen is slang. TV. TV is slang because it's actually television. Fridge is slang because it's a refrigerator. So think about other stuff. Kicks. I just said one before. I said popo. So start throwing those out there. Don't list every single texting abbreviation that there is because that'll take forever. But start making a list of slang together as a group if you're in the classroom. Because what that'll do is it'll help you acknowledge what words are slang. So this way you can avoid them when you actually transition into your essays. So, put me on stop and get to that.